It's time to spotlight Beta Technologies, an aerospace company that recently went public on the NYSE and reported its third quarter earnings. Joining us now is Kyle Clark, President and Chief Executive Officer at Beta Technologies. Kyle, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. If you wouldn't mind just beginning with telling our viewers a bit about Beta.
Sure. Great to be here. Beta Technologies, as you mentioned, we're an electric aerospace company, and we build electric vertical takeoff and landing and airport-to-airport horizontal takeoff and landing aircraft. And those aircraft initially are used for cargo medical logistics applications. We have some military applications before they solve this amazing opportunity of urban air mobility, of moving people at a much lower cost with low noise footprints in and out of urban environments.
So if the goal is eventually to move people, I know, and I read in your release and went through your earnings, we're starting in cargo and in medical. Why start there versus just going straight to the commercial space?
Yeah, because the regulatory burdens are just lower. We actually were the first company to carry passengers, for example, an electric airplane into JFK. We have the capability of doing so, but there's a lot of maturation of urban centers and municipal permitting to bring urban air mobility to fruition. Today, we can go from hospitals to airports to military bases to distribution centers without much friction at all. So we have the tools in the airplane. We're working through the type certification, and as we get further down this road and the municipalities start to put vertiports into their cities, or we start to put those in, that'll unblock the urban air mobility. But today there's a mission we can solve, and it has a wild cost benefit to our customers. Our biggest single orders with UPS, for example.
And so how far are we, would you say, from mainstream adoption then? If we need to install some of these vertical bases for operations, we need to get through some of these regulatory hurdles?
Yeah, I think that we're going to start to see these things. We've been flying all over the country. We have aircraft in New Zealand, up in Norway, doing a bunch of really cool missions, but that is not widespread adoption. Over the next 5 years, we're going to deploy thousands of these aircraft, and I think they're going to start in these medical applications. By 2030, 2035, we start to see a saturation around key city centers and urban air mobility. So this isn't far off. This is something I've been working on for 20 years. This is my senior thesis in college 20 plus years ago, and now we're flying all over the country and all over the world. And in the next 10 years, we're going to put these into these types of environments, and it's going to be an amazing option for transportation for people.
And you mentioned there that you have aircrafts in Norway and in New Zealand, part of the international operations. What are you learning from these first international deployments?
Yeah, we're proving that electric aviation is significantly less expensive. And most importantly, the maintenance and downtime and thus the dispatch rate are improved. So they're very reliable aircraft. I think we were the only aircraft to ever hit 100% dispatch rate in a large military exercise that we undertook for several months, 100% dispatch rate. And the viewers probably know that typical dispatch rates in military are measured in 60, 70, and commercials in the 90s, but to hit 100% with a new class of aircraft ups the service level. And we're learning that maintenance is really low for electric.
And I do want to make sure that we talk about your earnings, because you did offer your first earnings report since starting to trade publicly. And as a part of your quarterly report, you outlined 5 key performance indicators that you're going to use to define success. If you wouldn't mind just walking us through some of your key takeaways from the report and also what those 5 KPIs are.
Yeah, so we've noticed the industry, our industry, it's a little bit opaque as to what it means to make progress in a highly regulated environment. So we boiled this down to the 5 of backlog. So we went into the earnings call with a $3.5 billion backlog. We added another $1 billion to our backlog just in the last week, which is pretty awesome. Number 2, how far are these aircraft flying, both on a per unit basis, but total, because that's the exposure that gives us all that learning and the data to ensure we can produce statistically relevant data sets for the FAA for certification. Number 3, because we've deployed a global charging network, over in Abu Dhabi, throughout the United States, we have 84 of those charging sites online right now with about 62,000 sessions a year. We want to bring that up to about 800 charging sites domestically, and we, Beta, will own and control the flow of energy into the future of aviation. So the backlog, the nautical miles flown, the charging sites, and then the rate of production. So that's how many aircraft per month. And the last one is FAA certification progress, where there are definitive gates that each of us in the industry have to get through to prove to the FAA we have a safe, reliable, and most importantly, a repeatably produced aircraft in our production certification. So we measure those very acutely, and that's what we committed to reporting on yesterday in our first earnings call, and we gave a report on where we stood on all of these.
All right, so let's talk about the order book. You mentioned that you came in with a backlog of $3.5 billion just in the last week, so obviously not included in the quarter that you just reported, adding another billion. Walk us through some of the numbers there and who's buying these aircrafts? Are they outright purchases? Are they options for purchase?
Yeah. So our backlog is defined as deposit-backed orders. So they're not options to purchase in this case. So the backlog here is, excuse me, I should say that they are ultimately options to purchase, but they are deposit-backed orders that we're counting. So who's buying these aircraft? Like I said, UPS is the single largest order, but we've seen a massive trend towards more and more conventional takeoff and landing aircraft as a predecessor to launching the VTOL aircraft. But the big order that we got just this past week, and I see it on your screen right now, is Embraer Eve. So a subsidiary of Embraer makes a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that uses 9 electric motors. We delivered all of those motors they needed to go into flight test themselves. And then we earned the contract for the pusher motors for production. So if you take their backlog by the ASP of our the average sales price of our motors, that adds $1 billion to our backlog when you include the service component of that. And that is sticky, long-term, recurring revenue, because once something's designed into a certified product, it doesn't go away very easily. So that's the newness of the backlog. So we've got General Electric with a huge partnership, General Dynamics for some undersea work, Embraer Eve, Textron Aviation, and a number of other programs that are using our technology in their programs to make their aircraft work. And we own all that technology, the motors, the batteries, we make our own computers, and we use them in our own airplanes, and now we sell them to others.
And I'm looking at, your business. You've got 800 team members. You've got 447 patents. You just walked through the backlog for us. Looking forward and knowing that you said, we could be 10 years out from seeing more widespread adoption, which in reality is not that long of a time. What does Beta Technologies look like in the next 5 to 10 years? And what does success look like at scale?
Yeah, so the reason we've so focused on the charging network and the enabling technologies, and we consume that in our 7,000-pound two forms of aircraft now. Next, we'll make a bigger aircraft, 19,000 pounds, 30,000 pounds, and that's like 30 passengers and 70 passengers. We will grow into an aerospace company that consumes all these really amazing technologies that we're the first in the world to produce, and utilize them in larger and larger aircraft so that more and more of the country and more of the world get access to low cost, low noise aviation. And this is transformative right now because it is not like a 5% or 10% cost reduction. We're talking about nearly half the cost to fly. And that's what we're out proving in Norway and New Zealand and domestically, half the cost to fly. So we have a clear path technologically to get to bigger and bigger aircraft, more and more volume, do it in a way that's wildly profitable for us because it's a technology play, and it works for our customers because the cost is significantly lower.
Well, Kyle, we appreciate you being with us to talk to us about Beta Technologies and some of your offerings here in this very exciting space. That's Kyle Clark, President and CEO at Beta.